I think this is completely different than 2008. 2008, it was the largest globally connected financial services institutions having trouble. The leverage in the system was massive. Someone like UBS that I oversaw at that point was 35 times levered and had a balance sheet of 2.3 trillion. Today, the systemically important financial institutions are, 10 to 12 times levered. So one, the leverage in the system is completely different. Number two, the other thing that's different is we didn't have any tools in 2008 to deal with this type of contagion that was going to happen the day we walked out of the Fed, that, infamous weekend. And so there was no systemic financial regulator. They weren't looking at capital adequacy. They didn't have a living will. The shadow banking system was proliferating nonstop. And so the biggest difference is there's different tools today than there were then. We're not talking about the large scale, globally connected financial institutions. We're talking at inception about Silvergate, which was a small crypto lending banking company. Then we're talking about Silicon Valley Bank, which was large in some sense, but small versus, from a global perspective, and was not diversified. They mainly were, a company that was with startups, entrepreneurs, and venture. Signature Bank, which had, their two kind of bookends was commercial real estate and office space meets crypto. So you could say that, once again, not that diversified versus most globally connected institutions. So just very different from when we walked in and Lehman Brothers was on the brink after Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual was already bailed out. Then you have Credit Suisse, which is another one-off. And I think the move done this weekend by Swiss National Bank and UBS was as expected. I thought there was zero chance that they were going to let the country of Switzerland, Credit Suisse, become, taken over by someone outside of Switzerland. I would say that unlike Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, which you could argue wasn't a bailout because they wiped out the equity and the debt, and one of the reasons there were no acquisitions was the Fed was going to give no sense of future risk backstop. This one is much more like 2008. This is much more like Bear Stearns and JP Morgan, where the Fed did give JP Chase some risk protection and balance sheet. So if you look at this deal, the Swiss National Bank, gave them gave UBS $9 billion of protection on future risk, plus $100 billion of liquidity. So just much different. It's a great acquisition for First Boston. You can say that for $3 billion, they, for the most part, became a monopoly on private clients in Switzerland.